strikes like Thunderball. Any woman he wants, he'll get.
Hello Bond fans and welcome to my latest James Bond review, where today I review the fourth film in the James Bond film franchise, which is also Sean Connery's fourth 007 adventure, Thunderball. Directed by Terence Young. He has returned for the third time to direct a Bond movie. Released in 1965, so a year after Goldfinger. James Bond heads to the Bahamas to recover 2 nuclear warheads stolen by Spectre agent Emilio Largo in an international extortion scheme. That is essentially the basic premise of Thunderball. So, Thunderball, well, this is an interesting movie. This is my good friend, my dear subscriber, my good friend and dear subscriber, Alan Kalo. This is his favourite Bond movie. And a lot of Bond fans dig this movie. And in the past, I haven't. Thunderball has always been a Bond movie that's kind of been schizophrenic to me. I've always been kind of up and down about it. Never really been the biggest fan of it, to tell you the honest truth. I gave it a rewatch, obviously, just now, because I had to review it again. And I wanted to go in there with a fresh mind and fresh opinion. While I'll say this, the movie is definitely a little bit better than I remembered it to be. However, I still can't quite give it a pass. I'm sorry. Look, at the end of the day, I just want to put this out there. I don't hate Thunderball. I don't think Thunderball's a piece of shit. I don't hate Thunderball. I just don't particularly like it. There are things that I do like in it, so I guess I'll start with those. Sean Connery. The man never fails to deliver, well, until the next movie. He is very good in this film. I do like his performance. His performance is probably not as good as it was in Goldfinger, but that's when he hit his stride. I still think Connery is very much enjoying the part in this film. He's oozing cool. His performance is not quite as seamless. However, when he's with the ladies, it definitely shows. The film is a huge spectacle. I mean, given the success of Goldfinger, there was an increased budget. So this movie goes to extreme lengths to show you something visually quite stunning, and it does so very well. I mean, this film is very good to look at. It's shot on different cameras as well, so the aspect ratio of the movie is different as well. You're looking at a 16:9 ratio, whereas the previous 3 movies were all anamorphic. So I do like the scope of this movie, and I haven't talked a lot about this in the previous reviews, but the production design by Ken Adam is flawless in this movie. Probably the best of the first 4 films. It's yet to get even better in the next film, You Only Live Twice. So particularly in Bond's room in the hotel, that's amazing, that's huge. And obviously the health clinic as well, and Largo's house, you know, it's all very, very glamorous. You know, we're starting to get into a very glamorous look of the Bond movies, and I like that. I would just like to say that the actress who portrays Domino in this film, Claudine Auger, sadly passed away at the end of 2019. So this review is in memoriam for her as well. So, thank you. Thank you, Claudine. Her performance as Domino is great. Some people have accused her of being a Honey Rider ripoff. I can kind of see that, although it didn't bother me too much. I still enjoyed her character very much, and she's definitely, of the Bond girls in this movie, she is definitely the best. I also want to make mention of Molly Peters, who passed away a while ago as well. So again, another person to mention in this review, who plays the nurse in the clinic. She only appears at the beginning of the movie, but she has a great, shall we say, steamy scene with James Bond, quite literally. I also love the soundtrack to the film. John Barry's score is phenomenal. He does encompass some of the same themes that we had in From Russia with Love. And that makes the film feel a lot more epic. As well, we have a fantastic opening title song by Tom Jones. I mean, I love the Thunderball song. It is definitely one of my favourite songs in all of James Bond. It is so good. The orchestration is brilliant. The da-dun, da-da, Da, da. Lyrically, it's a good song, and Tom Jones's voice is brilliant. I mean, that last note that he sings when he goes, Thunderball. See, he does it much longer than I just done, but apparently he pretty much passed out in the studio after he did that, because it basically, he held it for so long that he lost consciousness. I mean, that's commitment, but regardless of that, the song is just incredible. And the title sequence that complements it, I think it's very nice. It's very visually beautiful. I mean, it's very basic. It's silhouettes of swimming women, divers, and then the colour of the water changes quite a bit. So that's something good. The opening sequence I actually quite like, although it does end in a particularly silly way with the jetpack. I don't know how I feel about the jetpack, to be honest. I've always been a bit two-sided about it. On the one hand, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's kind of silly, you know? Yeah, just not really my cup of tea. But the actual fight itself is very good. All the action sequences on land, I say this specifically with emphasis, on land are brilliant. They are well choreographed, the best they've ever been, really. And the MI6 regulars are pretty good for what they have. M and Moneypenny and Q do have their token scenes, but they're not really in it that much. Desmond Llewelyn is wearing a nice Hawaiian shirt though, so that's always good. Sadly, that is where my positives come to an end. Unfortunately, this is a review and I have to be constructive. Unfortunately, as you probably would surmise, one of the things I hate about Thunderball is the pacing of this movie. This film is so slow. I really struggle to retain my interest when I'm watching this film. This movie is way too slow for its own good. This honestly feels like they have shoved out a director's cut into the cinema. Or, well, in this case on the Blu-ray. This movie clocks in at 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it feels a lot longer than it is, because the story, to me, is just very dull. Like, you know, stealing of the nuclear, you know, warheads. Like, what? I don't give a shit. You know, the plot is a nothing story. Like, who cares? You know, after Goldfinger's plot in the previous movie, this is just, you know, whoopee. Who cares? Not that it's awful, but it's just dull. Like, it's a perfectly watchable film. The story's perfectly followable. It's fine, but it's just not interesting to me. That's the problem. This movie is dull and uninteresting to me. And another problem I have with Thunderball is that it's too long. Again, this movie clocks in at 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it feels very long. It feels so much longer than it is. There is at least 15 to 20 minutes that could be removed from this movie. It takes 36 minutes for James Bond to get on his mission. He spends ages fumbling around in this health clinic doing things that aren't even necessary to the plot. I mean, the stuff with Molly Peters is nice and appreciated, but then there's this stupid scene when he's on the sort of traction machine and he's going back and forth and it's like, To me, that why are they trying to create suspense with that moment? It just looks so silly, and Connery's facial expression is like, it's like he's being, you know, humped. It's like someone's having sex with him and he's not enjoying it. I think Terence Young's direction is okay. I could see, again, on a technical level, this movie is very impressive, but character-wise, not so much. The central villain of this film, Emilio Largo, in other words, the guy wearing the eye patch, I don't really like Largo very much. He's not a great villain. Again, not that he's terrible, there are far worse villains in the Bond franchise, but Largo, again, he's dull, he's uninteresting. There is a moment when we do see a very cruel side to him when he's trying to abuse his niece. Not sexually, I mean, God no, that'd be weird, but he ties her up and locks her in her cabin, and he's about to damp a cigarette light on her arm, and also some ice, so he tries to physically torture her, which is very creepy. But other than that, he shows no real menace, and Bond is not intimidated by him. And after Goldfinger, I mean, it was always going to be hard to find a villain who would come to that level. So, yeah, and why the hell is he wearing an eye patch? Like, is that to just set him apart from the rest of the villains? I don't see why he needs to wear an eye patch. It was kind of unnecessary to me. There are other characters in this movie like Paula, Pinder, Vargas. They're all wasted. Why are they even in this movie? Heck, why is Felix in this movie? Felix Leiter is in the movie. Why is he in it? He doesn't need to be there. And this is the third Felix Leiter we've had now. We have, in this movie, Felix is played by Rick Van Nutter. And, you know what, he may as well be a bloody nutter. I mean, Felix doesn't do a lot in the movie, and again, this is the third time Felix has been, well, cast in the Sean Connery era. So in Doctor No, you had Jack Lord, in Goldfinger, you had Cec Linder, and now in this movie, you have Rick Van Nutter. I mean, it just seems pointless. Luciana Paluzzi as Fiona Volpe. She is a great villainess. She's brilliant, and I like the way they stage her death with, she's dancing with Bond, and then he sees the gun, and then he turns around and she gets shot right in the back, and then his one-liner as he goes to sit her down next to those people, he says, "Mind if my friend shush this one out? She's just dead." There's some good one-liners like that one, and there's also another one where he shoots the guard with a harpoon gun against a tree, and he's like, "I think he got the point." And he delivers that line exactly the way it should be delivered. Again, Sean Connery is oozing cool in this movie. But yeah, Fiona Volpe is fantastic, and Luciana Palazzi, whew, she is a beautiful lady. And also, I have to talk about the action sequences. For me, the action does nothing for me. Well, the on-land action sequences are great. The underwater stuff, not so great. Look, the underwater fighting, I can see what they were trying to do. It was a neat concept. It hadn't been done before. They were trying to go for a huge spectacle. But to me, it's just a failed idea. The reason is, not because of the way it looks, well, kind of, but it's the speed of the action, the fact that it is very slow. But then again, it would have looked just as weird if you'd sped it up. The worst thing about it is that it's just so slow, and it adds no tension to me. That final action sequence is underwater, and they're all having a fight, and everyone's moving like this. You see, it's just boring, and the music, even the music has slowed down. It's the dun 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 dun. Again, you just start to feel like, see what I mean? Too slow for its own good. So sadly, that's not very good. This movie's just kind of a mess, really. Like, the story is a little all over the place. There's too many characters in this movie that they don't know how to deal with. Again, style over substance, really. That's the best way to describe this movie. But it really isn't very good, sadly. It's not terrible. I don't hate the movie. But it is the first disappointing Bond movie. So, yeah, I don't hate Thunderball, but it is the first disappointing Bond movie, and for that reason, I can't give it a pass. I'm very sorry. I'm going to have to score this one a 5 out of 10. So, that's my review of Thunderball. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this movie. And stay tuned next time when I review Connery's 5th, and at the time it would have been his final movie, You Only Live Twice, which after this would have had a 2-year gap. That's another thing I want to mention, is that I think there's a reason why Sean Connery got bored of playing James Bond, and I think it was because, partly, he'd done 4 consecutive movies year after year after year, so he was obviously burned out, so no wonder he was bored of the role. But we'll talk more about that in the next review. And also, shout out to Alan Kalo, as this is his favourite Bond movie, and I'm sorry, Alan, that we can't agree on this one, but I have to be honest, I gave it a shot. I just can't get into it. I really can't get into it. But hey, if you like Thunderball, that is fine. If you, like Alan, label this as one of the best Bond movies, that's fine. You know, good for you. But I just cannot, I don't see it, unfortunately, I really don't. Yeah, so next time, Connery's 5th movie, You Only Live Twice. And also, shout out to Sam Harrison, Jack McCulloch as well. And stay tuned for my review of You Only Live Twice. Until then, Bond fans, see you next time.